Okay, so we're the Office of Technology Management. I'm Heather Jones. I'm the Federal Compliance Officer and the Intern Program Manager. We do have some others from OTM on the meeting with us. So I was just going to ask if they could maybe go around and introduce themselves briefly and say what it is they do so that we kind of know who's who. So when we get to the question part of it, you know who all is on here to ask questions to.
Hi everyone, I'm Brad Edwards. I'm a technology manager, so I work with the analysts on the screening process.
Hi, I'm Michelle Chitamber. I'm also a tech manager. I handle engineering and physical sciences technologies.
I'm Mariana Lencina, also technology manager and the life sciences area, and former intern of many years ago.
Hey, I'm Jeff Wallace, tech manager. I work in the same area as Michelle in physical sciences.
Current interns, this includes you.
Okay, I'm Hannah. I'm the current lead commercialization analyst, and this will be my second year at the internship program.
Hi, I'm Ami Seeger. Oh, sorry. I'm Ami Seeger. I'm also a commercialization analyst. I'm in the microbiology program.
I'm Sophie. I'm also a current intern, and I'm a graduate student in the chemistry department.
I'm Nikki. I'm also a current intern, also from the chemistry department.
Hello, I'm Chris.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Chris, I'm a current intern and a second-year law student.
Hi, I'm Noah. I'm a current intern as well. I'm a fourth-year student in nutritional sciences.
And hi, I'm Sam. I'm a law student.
Hey, I'm Caitlin. I'm final year PhD in natural resources.
Is that everybody? Okay, great. So bear with me. Let me share my presentation. Okay, can everybody see that?
Looks good.
Great. So like I said, we're the Office of Technology Management, and what we do briefly is move innovations that result from university research into public use by protecting and licensing university intellectual property. Oh, of course, that's not going to work when I click on it. I'm sorry, it's not advancing my slides. Bear with me just 1 second. I'm not sure why it's not working all of a sudden.
So prospective interns, can we raise Zoom hands? How many of you are currently grad students? Let's see, now I've got to see you all. Okay, fantastic. Great. Any current law students? See, now we've already raised hands, so if you raise your hands, I won't even know. I'll ask some other time. Heather, is it working again?
I'm trying. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Did it advance? Okay. We're in business. Sorry. I don't know why that wasn't working. So what we call our interns commercialization analysts here, and what your role is at the office is to evaluate new technologies that we receive from around campus and perform a patentability and market analysis. And then you present your findings to help make the decision whether we'll protect that IP. All along the way, you get to participate in inventor interviews and get industry feedback. In the position, interns develop an understanding of intellectual property law, market and industry analysis, and licensing strategies. Once we protect our IP, then the goal is to market and license it. So here's some examples, and tech managers that are on, if you see something that's yours, feel free to jump in and explain what it is, because this is the really fascinating part, I think. All the stuff that you get to see come in the door, right? So these are some advances based on U of I faculty research. For instance, Mosaic, which is the basis for the modern web browser, Eudora, which is one of the first email platforms, the technology that came about for plasma screen TVs and touch screens. There's a wheat line that is on here that Riggs Brewery out in Urbana uses to brew their beer. Michelle, do you want to talk about the micro transfer printing? I don't know much about that one.
Oh yeah, sure. This one's a lot of fun. We've it's basically a way to print semiconductors really quickly and really cheaply. And you know, a lot of the things we do are super high tech, and there's a lot of great science behind it. But if you imagine like using your finger to pick up a crumb from a countertop, it's basically that, except we've got like $4 million worth of a couple hundred patents that cover something that's basically that. So, it's kind of funny which things end up being really the winning technologies, and, it doesn't always align with the things that are most impressive, but that's actually one of our biggest revenue generators right now. And Mosaic, yeah, we're one of, every other university claims to have invented the internet, and you can add us to the list. But yeah, Mosaic did, they integrated pictures so that, you can go online and see pictures. Like no one would have memes without us. So, yeah.
Here's some example of products using U of I IP. There's the, Brad, do you want to talk about the little robot?
Yeah, sure. This is a robot developed out of ag engineering and by Professor Chowdhury, and it's now licensed into his startup company called EarthSense. And what it is it's a robot that will go into fields and get a variety of data to help the growers understand the needs of the environment and get some predictive capabilities in terms of yield, all sorts of things. So basically, it's an enabler of precision ag.
Then there's the photonic tomoscope, which is the early detection for like inner ear infections. And then there's some design stuff on there too, like a mouthpiece for trombone. I think the company is called Madbone. Is that correct? I think. So that's some interesting, and the self-healing Rust-Oleum primer you see there. So here's some of the skills that we're looking for through this process, right? Interns have several cases that they're evaluating simultaneously. So time management and multitasking are absolutely key. Then communicating not only your findings with your tech managers, but also other updates along the way with lead interns, myself, and others. And then obviously a science technical background is preferred and an interest in tech transfer. So we have 8 positions total available for the next year, which starts in May. For JD, Master's and PhD students, it's $21.50 an hour. It is a year-long commitment, so from May 2023 to May 2024. There's a 2-week training period that begins on May 15th. It's 35 hours per week in the summer, unless you have restrictions as a PhD student, and then it's just 10. We do make some exceptions for some law students that have prior commitments, maybe an internship at a law office already. We will allow you to start in the fall if that is the case for you. And then 10 hours per week thereafter for fall and spring semesters. And then, of course, off on finals, weeks, and breaks. Now I'm going to hand it over to Chris, which is a current intern, and he's going to talk about why he loves this internship so much.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest draw for me was just getting exposed to new technology and science. I'm a law student right now, so it's a nice break from just reading legalese all day. You really get to see like new complicated technology that's coming up, especially things I didn't really I initially did not understand. So you know, I've worked in research or technology in like agricultural, like engineering, material science, genetics, software, things like that, which I wish I could probably talk more in depth, but I don't want to disclose anything that I can't disclose. I'm gonna be super vague about it. But it's all really cool tech. So, you know, it's if you really want to just be able to see kind of like the vast landscape of like what's coming up, it's pretty cool. Also the other thing is you know, you really get to learn how to like communicate well to different groups of people, and then also tailor that to different goals. So like at least every month, you're going to be talking to tech managers and presenting about a technology that you might not have known initially about, and then really helping distill like what is the point of novelty commercially for that group of people. So you get some adaptability. Also, like we get to see some other industry professionals. So we've met some law firms. I think soon we're going to be going to the Argonne National Lab, and then to a law firm up in Chicago too. So you know you get to meet up like a wide variety of people in the industry. And then yeah, I think those are like the biggest draws, is just like you get to meet a lot of diverse people in different areas. And you get to work with the technology in a way that I personally didn't really understand. So yeah, and then this next slide is OTM alums, so interns that have come through and now are at different professions. And so this is a versatile career path, or entry into a career path, onto different career paths. So I don't really know these people personally, so I don't know if Heather or anyone else want to like chime in who these people are.
Yeah, so one of the first group of interns, the first cohort that started at OTM, one of those persons, I don't think you guys can see my slide, my clicker, can you? But one of those persons ended up becoming technology manager for OTM, and then the director, and is now the director at MIT, Leslie Miller Nicholson. And then of course you'll see a couple pictures of our current technology manager that introduced herself. She's on here. We had another technology manager that was an intern first. She's moved on. She's not with our office, but she's still at the university. There's several other people. I don't know if anybody else knows people they want to explain what some of these people do now. Michelle, you know a lot of these people, don't you?
Yeah, I know a number of them, all different things. You know, a lot of folks went into IP law. Some of those were law students. Many of them were PhD students who became patent agents. Some of them ended up going to law school afterwards and becoming patent attorneys and things. Yeah, we have entrepreneurs here that I still reach out to, and we can still, you know, kind of engage with in different ways in our office. We've got a handful of patent examiners, which is pretty cool. I suppose they'd have to recuse themselves if they got one of our technologies in their queue. But yeah, you know, and the folks that are doing tech transfer, they're doing it all over. I mean, some of them are at universities, some of them are running the place. So Leslie, as Heather mentioned, that is the top job in tech transfer in the entire world, running MIT. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and some of them are in companies. Large companies have tech transfer shops and national labs. And, you know, it turns out this skill set, it sounds kind of niche. Like I didn't really hear about it until I was in it, but it's really transferable.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of our alums do say. They didn't realize this was a thing until they came. Well, we used to do this in person, and everybody used to come and get free pizza, but but until they joined one of these information sessions. So Chris, back to you.
Oh, yes. And this is just kind of a breakdown recently of where everyone kind of ends up. Kind of helps put some numbers, quantifies it a bit to where everyone ends up. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this, but yeah, you can see it's pretty diverse with the grad students. With the law students, obviously, probably most of us are trying to go into IP law. So, I know for me personally, it's giving me a lot more exposure to like the practical nature of how patents work in the real life. I think just reading a patent doesn't really give you realistic expectations as to how that becomes commercially viable. So, yeah.
you. So here's our timeline and where things go from here. Our submission time ends on February 25th. So you have up until February 25th to submit your resume and a cover letter. You can do that via Handshake or Simplicity. The job number for both of those is on our website. So if you're in Handshake or Simplicity, you can usually search for a particular job by its job number. You can find that on our webpage. We'll have case interview, or you can email it to me directly. Then we'll have case interviews the week of March 6th, and then offers made before March 20th, and then give everybody about a week to accept those offers. I want to make clear that that does include, if you are a PhD student, getting prior approval from your advisor before you can accept. And that's usually just an email back and forth to myself. And that is it. And there's my contact information, our office web page right there. And this is the time to ask all of your questions. We have everybody on here, so shoot.
Maybe we can clarify that the case interview, it's sort of like an example, like a quick example of how a regular analysis would look like. So it's a 30-minute time to look at a case, and then 30 minutes to discuss about that and about typical questions that would be in any kind of interview to get to know you and for you to get to know us.
Yes, and you don't need to bring anything for that. We'll provide you a computer to log on to, and then a sheet of questions that you're kind of looking to answer during that. So no need to prepare beyond that. Does anybody have questions about our office or what to expect? Somebody put something in the chat. Oh, for research-based PhD students, how would you manage research and the internship? So does a PhD student want to answer that question?
I can take the first stab at it. Excuse me. Obviously, because we've gotten approval from our professors, they know that we do have this 10-hour time commitment a week. And we have some standing meetings on Thursdays, but typically you have some flexibility. And so the most important thing is to just schedule everything in advance in my experience. I live off of my Google Calendar and try to keep the office calendar updated too, so everyone knows when everyone's going to be in. And I find if you just plan everything out, it works out.
Yes, use calendaring and communications. Very important.
Yeah, just kind of echo Hannah. I noticed that as long as I keep an open line of conversations with my PI, they tend to be pretty understanding. And you know, for him, as long as I'm not falling behind in my own research, he's super cool with, like, you know, me doing extracurricular activities.
So I can mention really quick, in terms of what this actual internship involves, some of it is very in person. So you'll go every Thursday morning to kind of meetings and discuss technologies with the technology managers, or you'll schedule interviews with people who've invented stuff. And for that, scheduling is really important. But for things like when you're working on presentations about those inventions, that can be very much done to your own schedule. So whether you put it in the afternoon because that's what works for you, you have to work a couple hours on the weekend or in the evening because you've got a super busy week, the office has been pretty flexible about when you can do that kind of work.
Absolutely.
And maybe the other thing to note is that at least currently we kind of have a hybrid system going on. So Mondays and Fridays, most people are working remotely, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, most people are working in the office. So it's kind of expected that of our 10 hours, we spend at least 5 of them in person. But then as Caitlin was saying, the other 5 we can do remotely and be a little bit more flexible as to how we're spending that time.
Yes, good point. Thank you, Sophie and Caitlin.
Is the internship going to be remotely or in person or what? I didn't catch that.
Like Sophie mentioned, it's a hybrid. We do ask that you try to show your face for a few hours a week just so communication can happen. But obviously we're flexible. Some of those hours when you're working on a case can be remote, absolutely. Bit confused about the schedule. I'm sorry, could you clarify what you're confused about? So there's a 2-week training period where unless you have restraints because you're a PhD student, like I said, those 2 weeks absolutely is going to be, it usually ends up running between 20 and 30 hours a week for those 2 weeks. Sometimes less, just depending on what we're going over. Most of it is in person. There might be a session or two that might be kind of like this. But yeah, it's a 2-week training period, but essentially the training will happen for a while, right? And we have a few interns that are staying on over the summer to kind of help with that transition. So they'll be in the office, they'll be around. We use Teams to communicate quite a bit. So if you have questions, we have a Teams chat that you just kind of shoot it to, everybody can see it and helps out. And then obviously being in the office, there's a room that all the interns sit in together. So if you have questions, you ask each other. That's why the in-person is kind of important as well. Does that, I hope that
You're
answers your
muted.
question.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so when I was going through that like 2-week period, I was scared initially that I wouldn't be able to do any of my research. But it turned out that, I mean, we were done by late afternoon, so I would just go into lab afterwards and get my stuff done for research. And so it wasn't that big of a problem. You probably don't want to do like a day-long experiment during that 2-week period, but you know, you have the weekends too. So you do end up being a little bit more busy, but not too bad.
And I can also chime in a little bit on like the other end of that. So I came in with some hour restrictions, so I was not able to do the like full hours during the 2 training weeks. I could only do the 10. And I would definitely went into that like anxious that I would be behind getting started. And I would just say, if that is your position, don't worry too much about that, because there will be resources for you to like catch up on those trainings, and people are really great about answering your questions. And you know, you have the support of the rest of the intern cohort and the OCM staff if you come up against something that maybe you missed in training. So yeah, that's definitely not an insurmountable hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, we do have some prior training stuff that's recorded that I know, as Chris, I believe, used most of that because he started with law student that started late. So we do have that available as well.
I'll also say that the training is one of the more unique things about our program. So when you get into tech transfer, you'll see that it's actually an industry. It's actually growing pretty quickly at universities kind of everywhere. There's a growing number of intern programs popping up. And when I talk with my peers about them, and we talk about, you know, well, what do you do? And they're like, well, we have this one random student that kind of follows us around for a semester. And I was like, really? You know, do they learn anything? Like, do you use anything that they do? And they're like, eh. So, you know, having our program and the fact that we're actually, you know, teaching you guys what to do and making sure that you get things out of it is somewhat unique. They actually, the kind of tech transfer internship book was written about our program, kind of literally. We were one of the first ones back in the year 2000 or 2001 or something.
Yeah.
And it's still really the gold standard for internships in this field.
Someone asked if case interviews are going to be in person or virtual. They are in person. You're handed a case actually on paper when you walk in the door to sit at a computer and work through. So that will be at OTM, which is at the ceramics building on Goodwin. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and thanks to all the OTMers that are on for helping out today. It was great. And hopefully I'll see resumes very soon.
One more question here in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, how can we prepare for a case interview? Well, you can't. The goal is we kind of hand you something that's a little out of your field, just to see how you're going to answer and how you do that research. So there's really no way to prepare because you're not going to know in advance of that day what your case is going to be about. But you are given, like I said, like a little list of questions that is kind of your guidelines as you kind of look up stuff so that you know what you're looking for and you try to answer those questions as best you can.
Well, you can look up and try and be familiar with U.S. patent law at the very least. I mean, that's a big ask right there, but just generally familiar would be just fine. Maybe look at a patent or two and see how they're arranged and what's in them and how they are written. Might be helpful, but as far as the specifics of each case that you're on, there is no way to prepare for that. But just relax; it'll be fine.
We just want to get an idea how you think and approach problem solving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and admit when you don't know something.
Yeah.
You're like, I think it's this, but you know.
Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody.